Bienvenido. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Tropical Bets Ahora with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, and we always like to say hello to our good friends tuning in on Channel 82 in Bermuda. Now, we typically love to talk about the gambling line on the show. That's what we do. We talk sports betting, the gambling line. You guys know I like to fire off talking a little bit of the boxing talk, and maybe there's going to be some odds coming up on this fight, October 25th in Barbados Bash, and we are very thrilled to be joined with Keithland King, who's got an outstanding record, 9-2, 9 knockout power. He's winning belts and titles all over the Caribbean, all over the place. He just got done training. He said, "You know what? I got to jump on board because I gotta get to the Barbados crowd. I got to get to my guys over in Bermuda." And he joins me for a couple moments. How are you, brother?
I'm good, sir. Thank you for having me on your show. Must say, thank you for having me on your show.
Uh, Absolutely, absolutely pleasure. Yeah, you got this card coming up. This is now. I'm just curious. The card itself, October 25th. Um, that is set. That is set in stone. You have your opponent pretty much locked in.
Yes, it's set. It's set. Big shout out to Jeff Gatlin promotion over to Washington D.C., going all the way to Barbados and helping me and Kobe Brady, fight to make a big opportunity, a dream come true to fight back home. Before we eventually hang up the gloves. I'm fighting a fighter called Edmund D. Clue from Guyana, 19-4.
Yep.
They say it's a big step up fight, but what I mean, we gotta step up at some point,
Yeah.
you know.
What's interesting though? It's like, some of these guys, they have a lot of wear and tear, right? They fought a lot of rounds, they're well traveled. But I also look at, guys that have stepped up in competition because this the fight game is funny, right? You've been around the block a little bit. You turned pro back in 2017, not as active for the first couple years. I know there was a 5-year layoff. Was that a situation of um not being promoted, unsigned, fights falling through? Because think about that. You lose a couple years of your career, maybe you look at things a little differently.
Mhm. So sorry about that. A call came through the same time. I'm so busy, I didn't fully hear the question.
Tell them
Yeah,
not
I
to
just
call
trying
you
to
right
ask
now. You're
something.
talking boxing. How about so I
You know.
mentioned when you turned pro and then you had a couple years layoff. What was that
Uh huh.
contributed to?
God, man, I can see you in mind that follow boxing and know boxing well. To be mentioning that to me. So what happened was, I went to give up boxing. Boxing is a very tough, hard sport. If you to me with boxing, you could got the world of talent. If you don't got the right people around you, you won't see the top. You won't see the top. That's just my
Correct.
belief.
Correct.
And
Correct.
I turned professional in 2017 on the Julian Jackson. Everybody know the great Julian the Heart Jackson son
Sure.
card. And it's a big story behind that, at the time, so at the time I really wanted to give up boxing. I was going through it, just came back from Olympic trials, nothing was happening. And I was in Barbados and I was in my apartment. And I remember going through it, it was really rough. And I remember saying this to myself, I will never forget it. I was in my apartment, me alone, and I said, God, I said, man, you're gonna have to show me how real you is. I really want to do this boxing thing, and nothing is happening. You gotta show me if you exist. I want a phone call from somebody. I need to fight. I need to fight this month or next month. That's the only
Right.
way I
Right.
can
Right.
believe in
Right.
you.
Right.
Show me that you're real. And then I was going to the supermarket to the mini mart to get some stuff. I'll never forget it. Julian Jackson's son called and he said, "Hey, Keithland, we having a show and we're thinking about having you on it." And I was like, "Man, you lie, man. You lie." I don't know if Clayton can remember. And he was like, "How you mean I lie?" I was like, "I was sorry, bro. I ain't talking to you because I was so connected to like, whoa. I just like few minutes ago I said like, yo, you gotta show me if you're real,
Right.
do something. And then I had the call and I went over to Virgin Islands, fight on the card. I had Julian Jackson in my corner. Who else could you want in your corner? A power hitter. I like hitting hard. So Julian was known for hitting hard. Had him in my corner. I remember when I came out the ring, Julian told me, man, you make me catch cold bumps, my friend, because he saw me and his son rumble in the armor choice. He said, yo, you hit really hard, Keithland. You know, when you hit the gun, my whole body went cold. Make me remember back in my days. And I felt good to hear a legend like that telling you this, you
Sure.
know what I mean? And from there, Julian wanted to help me. I remember Julian, he wanted to help me boost my career, but then it had the hurricane went and destroy US Virgin Islands, destroy his gym, and then
Wow.
we had COVID after. So then it was like, wow, you know, I took a big hit, no boxing during COVID. And then eventually I met my wife. My wife is from Jersey, and I decided to move to the US. And you know, when I came over, I wanted to I was just hanging in there. So one day I went to New York and I spar, you know, and I spar with Balanga. And then when I spar with Balanga, I was like, damn, man, I still got it. You know what I mean? And then I just, you know, I sparred with Balanga. I was not in shape or anything. And some other fighters. And I was like, man, I still got it. You know, and I kept fighting. You know, I fought. I fought one show here. I got two losses. I'm not the type of fighter that like to make excuses.
Yep,
My
yep.
first fight that I lost, I was going through it. My second fight, I almost died. Enough people ain't know it. I had COVID. Didn't know I had COVID. You know, my wife, she called me the day before the fight. And she said, you don't sound right. You need to pull out the fight. And I'm like, love, I'm the main event. I can't do this. You know,
Wow.
the guy he signed, he already sold out all the tickets in Texas. And you know, the promoter, I say, this is an opportunity. I always wanted to fight in the States on a stage like this. I fought on King's Promotion.
Yeah, I know
And
Marshall very well, called Fights for
yeah,
Marshall for years. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
okay. Yeah, so I fought on the show, you know. They didn't know I had COVID and stuff like that. And the day before the fight, you know, my coach that I worked with for the fight, he said, man, if it's one thing, man, I go war with you any day because man, you were so sick. I didn't even know you're that sick. You know, and I came to Texas, I was like 175 and I had to be 160. And the next day I wake up, I was 160. They was like, are you gonna make this weight? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make the weight. Don't worry about my weight. You know, I get up 2 o'clock in the morning, I was skipping, I make my weight, shadow boxing in the room, but I was not feeling myself. I was very weak. I had a friend call from Canada. He was that's gonna be on the making a debut on the card too. He was like, bro, you don't sound right at all. So I was like, man, I know. After the fight, nobody know. I was in the back of the room, coughing blood and everything.
Wow.
That's how bad COVID had me. But I didn't make no excuse, you know.
Right.
You know, at some point I hope that me and the guy could fight again, hopefully. After I fight for this belt, you know.
That that
Somewhere
that
down the
second
line.
loss that second loss was Jorge Tovar, right? Second
Yes,
loss was
sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir. I mean, I would love to do it again. Me and Tovar again at some point. Definitely.
What
You know,
happened in your first loss? I am curious because you had 3 fights under your belt. You were knocking everyone out. You were 3-0, and then you fought William Townsville 4 rounds. Is that just kind of one of those fights where it happens sometimes? You get a debut.
man, I'm gonna tell you, man, being in America, so I was training here in Washington, DC with Barry Hunter, right? And I never really tell anybody this, you know, and I never really explain it to Barry Hunter. But I did. I don't know if you know Lamont Peterson.
Of
I really
course.
explained it to Lamont Peterson, and he was the man in my corner that night. Every fighter, like not every fighter, but most people, if you got somebody like Lamont Peterson in your corner at the time, you're gonna be like, feel, yeah, I'm the man. But like I told Lamont after, you know, a year, like few months after the fight, I said, man, I know you're the man. I look up to you and everything, champ. But my confidence, my spirit was down that night so much because the person that I wanted to be in my corner was not in my corner, and that was Barry Honda. You know what I mean? He was not there in my corner. You know, it had Olympic trials going on in the US, and you know, he went out there with the amateur guys, and I just felt down the night, and it take the best of me, you know. And
Yeah,
then yeah, and then with Tovar, I had COVID. You know, the man that what's his name? I don't know if you know James Barkley.
of
He
course.
worked for right. He personally told me when I told him, man, because he's who got me to fight with Tovar. He saw me sparring in Philly and he came up to me. He said, "Guy, you can fight." He said, "I got this guy. I want you to fight. You're gonna be the favorite." I said, "I don't care who he is, who favorite. I'm ready." But you know, I got infected with COVID along the way, and it turned out how it turned out. But I use that to motivate me each and
Sure.
every day. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I use it to motivate me because I know, man, I've been around a long time. It's been tough. I've been to Olympic trials, Commonwealth Games, so
No, listen,
I'm hanging in there.
you listen, you're well traveled, but you also know, you know, um, sometimes the expression "it's getting late early," right? 37,
Hmm.
you wanna keep being active and more
Yep,
active and more
yep,
active and get rounds under your belt. Funny, you mentioned, Kobe Breedy, Soldier Boy, and,
yeah.
it's funny that I called his pro day I've called a bunch of his fights. I called his pro debut back in 2014.
Oh
Rose
yeah,
Cro Rose Cro I have an interview with him on my channel.
oh
Rosecroft
yeah.
Raceway in Maryland, and I'll tell you who he fought. He fought this kid Thomas Herrera. I think it was a 4 round. He's
Okay.
yeah, Breedy's what 17-1. He's from
Yes,
Bridgetown, Barbados.
yes, sir. Yeah, he
Yeah,
the main thing.
yeah, that's fantastic. So this card itself, October 25th. From what I gather, not a lot of fights that have taken place over the years in Barbados.
No, boxing, coming up as a kid, Barbados has got a lot more boxing. And I used to be like, damn. And that's one reason I never give up because I always wanted to fight at home, coming up watching guys like Sean Terry Cox, that was our Olympian. Then we had another Olympian called Marcus Thomas. Just watching these guys as a little kid doing their thing. And I'll be, Junior Greenwich, he fought Pascal in the amateurs. I used to be like, man, I want to be like them. I want to fight. So I use that to motivate me every time I think about giving up. I'll be like, man, I didn't fight at home yet, so I'm nowhere close. Even I'm gonna be fighting at home, I still not gonna give up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they say one of the most the most the one of the famous, right, but I think was more or less coming out of Guyana was the Barbados Joe Walcott.
Joe Walcott.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not familiar with Joe Walcott, I must
From
say.
Barbados, right? World Welterweight champ, but this is back in the early um 1900s, right? I mean,
Okay.
and I think at the time, like the late 1800s, he was born in British Guyana and then migrated to um Barbados. But
Okay.
you guys have a rich history though from so many different sports. That's why I think this card
Mm-hmm.
is significant because obviously it's going to have that feel, that juice, that flavor, so to speak, and it's an opportunity for maybe people in the states or overseas who really don't know about some of these fighters to get a close up look at
Yeah.
them and
Yeah.
then follow them and kind of follow and watch their careers grow. So it's a good opportunity, and if you have a good showing, you're right, it could catapult including the other fighters on the card
Yep.
to bigger things, right? Because you want to get some of these regional belts. You want to be able to fight for certain belts. We were talking before we came on the air that you know
Mm-hmm.
some belts they're just not going to have these fights in the Caribbean, in the
Yep.
islands, on the islands
Yep.
in
Yep.
Barbados.
Yep. Because for instance, like we said, the Fika box was really made for the Caribbean. But if the Caribbean not promote having no fights, they're not gonna leave
Exactly.
the belt to keep dust. I mean to catch dust.
Yeah.
So they
I
gotta
I'm
make other
I'm
people
wondering
fight
if
for them.
it's just I wonder if it's just more of a not a logistic or just maybe from a political thing or having to deal with the commissions over there because even in the States, this as well as I do, some
Mm-hmm.
commissions are just goofy. They're
Yep.
just goofy. Like
Yep.
it's tough if you're going out of state or you're going overseas and you're fighting somebody, you're losing a couple rounds right there. You can't let it
Mm-hmm.
get to the scorecard. So I always think it's interesting when guys fight on different soil, how that fight plays out because they know they never want to leave it up to the judges.
Yep, yep, yep. Well, with me, what happened is right. What I've really realized is like you see in the Caribbean, like I said, boxing is dead. So the bodies, like the sanctuary bodies, I heard in Trinidad. Trinidad was one of the top boxing countries. Trinidad, Guyana,
Mhm.
and Barbados. So was really big on the professional, but they don't have no board. So boxing going clearly. So okay, we got these belts invented for you guys, but nobody's fighting for them. So we got to give them to somebody else. And that's how I think the same belt that I was trying to fight. Aleem got the belt. Aleem got the Fika Bots
The
title
Fika
belt.
box.
Yeah, Aleem got that belt. And really, I'm not a 168-pound fighter. I fight 160. But you know,
Okay.
the guy he was calling me over. He said, long time he said he wanted to fight me. You know, so he said he gonna take my crown. So you know, I say, okay, well, let's see if you take it. I'm willing to go at it. You know.
What do you what do you make of the current state of boxing, right? Because now, look, everyone's influenced by what someone's posting or saying or talking nonsense or garbage or trash on social media. That's how half these fights are made, right? But a
Hmm.
lot of times, fighters want significant paydays. They don't, they can't agree to the splits, the purses. I mean, we were getting ready to look at guys like, Tank, Loma, Lopez, Garcia, Shakur. I mean, every 6 or 7 months, we want to start lumping like these young guys in here, or the next generation of fighters. And to me, it's not like it was back in the day. I think social media plays a big role in it. So, the state of boxing as a fighter, when you look at the current state of boxing, do you think that there's always issues, but how do what do you make of it right now? Are you happy where the sport is?
Not really, because like to me, like you're saying, with social media, I think social media take over the world entirely. One, one thing I realized on boxing today, man, if you ain't got a big follower, it ain't no fights for you for real, for real. Who are you? You're nobody, because you don't got 100,000 fighter. I mean,
Yeah.
100K followers. Nobody want to fight you. You nobody. First thing first. You know
Which
what I
is
mean? And
really
that's
which is really, to be honest, it's kinda, like, disheartening because I get it, like, you grow as you win, but, I don't know. I agree with you. I think it's a cesspool. I mean, the boxing fans on X, on Twitter, are just
hmm
these guys would argue with 2 cockroaches fighting in the parking lot, like,
yeah,
it just gets crazy.
yeah. Social media take over a lot in boxing, like crazy, like crazy. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm
just like
not.
Jake Paul versus Tank. You know what I mean? It's a good. I mean, it's a good exhibition fight, whatever. But like Jake Paul, could you fight me? I got a resume too.
Yeah,
I ain't
right.
want
You know
two
you know,
hundred million.
I've
I
actually
don't want 200 million. Fight me. You know.
I've gone back and forth with people because I think, look, now you get the influencers like the Jake Pauls, and he's doing a lot for women's boxing. It can't be denied when MVP.
Mhm.
He's a genius marketer at the end of the
Yep.
day. He's
Yep.
taking,
Hats off to him. Hats off to him when it
yeah,
comes to marketing.
that's what I'm saying. And people sit there and say it's a gimmick. Yeah, but he's making hundreds of millions of dollars. He knows exactly what he's doing, and
Mhm.
he's trying to, you know, take the craft serious. But at the end of the day, he is an entertainer. He's great with marketing, and he's got a staple of fighters on MVP. And again, whether we want to sit there and say, okay, what the heck's going to happen in this fight and this and that, and I mean, what happens if he goes out and he knocks out Tank Davis? Now, what does that say about Tank Davis?
It's a good question, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that man almost 200 pounds. And one thing I analyze about Jake Paul, people can say, "Oh, he not a boxer, he a YouTuber," and then people could say, people might say, "Oh, he got knocked out by Jake Paul, a YouTuber." Me, I don't consider Jake Paul a YouTuber anymore. I consider Jake Paul a professional boxer. Jake Paul got money and he focused on his boxing. He got professional trainers in his camp. I don't consider him a YouTuber anymore at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I control.
it's a great
Uh-huh.
point. Yeah, it's a great point you bring up. You can't because who listen, he's not going in there with a, you know, 39, 40, 45-year-old MMA guy. He's going in there with Tank.
Yep. Yep. At this point, you could only consider him a professional boxer.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a lot of it also stems from, and let's be honest, fighters have to scratch, claw, and grind. And then they see a guy who's being goofy on
Come
YouTube,
out of
but
nowhere. Yep. Because when you speak, like even a guy like me, that somebody would say is nobody. Like if you put me and Jake Paul resume next to each other, beside fighting him Mike Tyson, who else did he fight? That's a big name. Who else did he fight? Is a big name.
right, right,
Who else?
right. Yeah.
It ain't much. I've been to. every Olympic trials in the world, international, Pan American Games, CAC Games, and you name it, I've been there. So if you put me and his resume together, I got a better resume. But
Right.
do I have Jake Paul money? No, I don't.
No,
Not
no.
close.
Few do. What did you make of the Crawford and Alvarez fight? Canelo. I thought prior to the fight, I just didn't even see it being remotely close. That was just my. I think the fight changed early on.
Yeah,
Early
from
rounds.
Earl and Crawford was been it was a great fight. It was a great fight. I was one of the Crawford fans, because I like Crawford. I like how he moves he not flat footed boxer. He could do it all. So I was going with Crawford to win. And Saul is one of my favorite boxers, but I was going with Crawford.
Yeah, it
It was
was.
a very
I mean,
good
listen,
fight.
these. They say there's levels right to this game, and
Hmm.
Crawford. I mean, who knows? Is he going to fight again? Is he going to retire? I mean,
Can I answer that? I'm gonna answer it. I think Crawford's gonna fight again. Somebody asked me why you say that. I said I think Crawford gonna go to middleweight after this, and I already hearing rumors that I told somebody that on the night of the fight. I think he's gonna go to 160, and then as you can see, his quote saying, one of his quotes saying, "Man, we need 100 million because we achieve everything." Like I was telling one of my friend today, about 2 days ago, Kobe. I was telling Kobe, he was saying the boot fight can't happen. Crawford not studying boots. I said, bro, let me tell you something. Crawford in the best boxing shape in his life right now. Believe it or not. Don't mind Crawford is 38. He's in the best boxing shape of his life, and he would fight boots. Reason I think he would fight boots because money talk. Bullshit what? Sorry,
well, let
excuse
me
my
ask you a
language.
question though. Sticking to boots for a second, because obviously he's in my backyard
Mm-hmm.
in Philly, and I know you mentioned you sparred and
Mm-hmm.
trained in Philly as well, and
Mm-hmm.
reside in the states obviously now. I, everyone looks at that fight the other day, and I'm like, how? I understand the fight game. I've called fights for years. You take care of business. He took care of business in the first round, but like, okay, I walk away thinking what? Like, it does my opinion change of Boots Ennis? I already know he's a exceptional fighter, and you got to
Mm-hmm.
fight who's in front of you. But and I know sometimes fights aren't made. Now, do I sit there and say that's the knockout he needed? Right? He
Uh-huh.
leveled up in class. I kind of thought this fight was going to go 2, 3 rounds at best.
Me personally, I don't know the guy, and I think at Boots level he shouldn't be fighting. Don't get me wrong. I think you know coming out of the moving out to 54, I think you should come up and fight like the Charlo or even the Erickson Lubin. Some people I saw come up with that today on social media where Lubin was talking about even coming and fight him, and somebody say, you wouldn't even last 2 rounds with Boots. Oh, come on, man. Lubin is a good fighter. He's not a
Well,
bad
he's got
fighter.
he's got he's fighting Virgil Ortiz Jr., so
Yeah,
we'll see,
yeah.
right?
Lubin is not a bad fighter, but hopefully we could see Boots against one of them big boys like Canelo, not Canelo, the 54. What we just call his name, Lubin or the
Mhm.
Charlo. Hopefully we
Yep.
can see Boots against one of them before you think about going to Crawford. You
Yeah, I mean,
know.
listen, it's and that, again, that fight, that was his, I think the targeted fight in 2026 is gonna be him against Virgil Ortiz Jr.
That's a good fight too. That's a good fight.
I think so, it just makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
that's a
But
good fight.
if the fights aren't there, they can't be made.
A fight that I would also like to see is him versus Keith Thurman. A lot of people say Keith Thurman washed up, but trust me, he only got one loss. So how could you call him washed up?
Yeah, well, and Thurman, I've interviewed Keith. I love Keith Thurman because Keith
Uh-huh.
Thurman he talks in first person. It's Keith, 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 right? So, but he had so many after the Pacquiao fight in 19, I believe. He obviously we dealt with the COVID, had the layoff, fought Mario Barrios, then came back and I think fought Brooke Jarvis. But that was after a 3-year layoff. Now he's got the fight coming up. I think it's a week after your fight,
Yeah. Well, no, I
Fundora,
think
right?
it's postponed. It's postponed until next year because Fondora pulled out. He got hand injury.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
15.
Injured, yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah,
yeah,
Sebastian got injured. You're right, you're
yeah.
right,
But it going
right.
to another card, I think is in January,
You're
maybe
right,
or
you're right, yeah.
December. Yeah.
I forgot about that, which stinks because I like Keith Thurman. I liked his style. I think he's got that charisma. Um, but yeah, I mean, it just stinks. I mean, you get a fighter that's dealing with a lot of injuries, right? Hand
Yeah,
surgery, torn
yeah,
bicep.
a lot of injury. That's what
Yeah.
Keith Thurman don't fall. I like both fighters, I like to see Keith back on track, you know what I mean? I would like to see him win. Charlo versus Spence is not Charlo versus Spence. To me, I don't think that fight should have happened at this point. See that two of the guys was laid off for so long. I think
Yeah.
they should be working their way back up. Because I would like to see Boots against one of those guys also.
Mm.
Even the Spence, but if the one that lose gonna go down a bit, that's how boxing operating
Of
now,
course. Of
So
course.
if let's say Spence lost, then then you're not gonna hear about Spence for a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
And
So you got the
Spence,
fight again, Tropical Bets Ahora. We are on channel 82 in Bermuda, also on my YouTube channel on X, Rich Q on Q. Keithland King, kind enough to join us. His record, I mean, the record 9-2, 9 knockouts, all these accolades all over the place. October 25th, Barbados Bash. What do we expect to see from you?
well, I'm like I say, I'm looking for a knockout.
What fighter? It's funny because when I ask fighters, "Are you looking for
For a
the
knockout.
knockout?" They dismiss it, and now you come on and you
I'm
basically
looking
just
for a knockout.
you're looking for
Listen, man. I'm from small. Like I said, Julian Jackson is one of my favorite. Not was one of my favorite fighters. I like knockouts. Just like my boy Kobe. I've been telling him for years, like, bro, you know. You gotta knock him out. He'd be like, but my coach say to work on this. I say, I understand your coach say to work on this, my boy. But
yeah.
17 fights with no knockouts is not gonna sell you. It's not gonna get
No,
you
it's
no
not.
way. You know what I mean? And he's starting to understand me a lot now. No, you do an interview with him and you ask him, what do you want in Barbados? Man, a knockout. It's what sells. That's what sells.
Yeah,
You know,
listen,
years ago I was training with Austin Trout and I sparred with Austin Trout ago. And he told me, he did help sponsor me for the 2016 Olympic trials. I felt bad that I didn't get in after he helped me out. But it's life. And he told me, like, I remember he telling me one day, he said, yo, King, you're gonna be one of them fighters, right? 10 fights, 10 knockouts, 12 fights, 12 knockouts. You know, I don't hit myself. I never hit myself. That's probably the first time. Everybody say I hit hard. I never like really, like even being around Barry Hunter, he would say, man, you just don't believe in your power, bro. You got mad power.
sometimes
Everybody,
you gotta
but
let the hands go. You gotta let them go.
yeah, yeah. So no, I'm starting like everywhere I go, people said he hits hard, but I never like really believe I hit as hard as they. I think they were just trying to hype me up. But lately, I realized, like, yeah, I do hit hard. Everybody, last week I did some sparring in New York, and I was sparring this kid, and he told his coach, the power is real, and
Yeah.
I say, I heard him saying it. So I was like, yo, bro, it's telling you to believe, bro. Everywhere you go, world champion. And I was sparring. I almost got in the Olympics in 2016 in Argentina. And I remember just before I went out to the Olympic trials, Lamont called me, Lamont Peterson, he called me aside. He said, bro, let me tell you something, right? If you could take a shot from the average person that's going to be in the trials, just remember, they can't take a shot from you, bro. You hit different. And when you believe in your shots, you're gonna see a different, bro. And I went out there, and I went out with there with that in my head. I remember hitting a guy to the body, boom, from Panama. He dropped, couldn't get back up, Yeah, so seems like the power is real, and we both to find out October 25th.
Well, I'll say this in closing. I saw the YouTube or the IG clip. What did you mention? Because the fighters from Guyana, you mentioned something about water.
Yeah, well, it's funny. If Jeff make the fight, he said, no, the logo of the fight is somebody got a drone. Because the guy, he said to me that I'm not ready, he been fighting longer than me in the pros. So he said he gonna take me to the deep waters. So, we
Ah,
went to
okay.
Barbados. So we went to Barbados, and when I was on television out there, they was we was talking about it, and I was telling the person on the TV like, hey, he say somebody got a drone October 25th. Well, listen, Barbados is surrounded by a lot of water. It's a small little island, and Guyana is known as the land of water. So I
There
said,
you go.
whoa, it's a lot of water in this fight. Somebody got to drown.
There
I
you go.
can't swim,
That's
but
right.
I ain't planning on drowning.
Yeah. You can float good, but you can't swim.
Yeah, I'm
October
afloat.
25th. Where is that fight going to be streamed anywhere?
Yes, that fight gonna be streamed. It's gonna be streamed. I'm gonna have the link on my
Perfect.
bio by tomorrow. Yeah, that fight
Okay.
is gonna be streamed.
All right. And then where can everyone follow you on social media too?
Everybody can follow me at King for Life on Instagram, Keithland King on TikTok. I don't do too much TikTok. I'm more Instagram person.
I got you. Now, because I told you in closing, typically I talk a lot of handicapping, whether it's soccer, whether it's
hmm
horse racing, whether it's the boxing.
hmm
I'm wondering if there's odds on this one. You're saying early knockout.
Normally, I go for early knockout, but me for this fight, I just want because the person because the guy says somebody gonna drone. So when you're talking about drone, you're talking about later rounds. So I'm gonna test my fitness with him a little bit,
Okay.
but if he slip up, he might be out of there in two
Yeah,
or
8
three.
rounds, 8 rounds or 10,
Yeah,
8 rounds.
I think it's gonna be an 8 rounder or 10 rounder.
Okay.
We would say eight. I ain't fully sure what they discuss it yet, but 8, 12, 13, I'm gonna be ready.
All right.
So
Well, listen,
whatever number it is, I'm ready. Hopefully, I like to get them out of there in two or three. That's when I
got
like
you.
to take them out. But he say you're gonna take me to the deep waters. Who
Deep
knows?
waters.
He might.
Hey, that's what we say, sink or swing. Sink or swing. All right, we gotta start wrapping it up. Appreciate, Cleveland joining me on this edition of Tropical Bets Ahora. Don't forget, check us out on channel 82 in Bermuda. You can follow me on IG at RichQ on Q, social media on X. We'll be on the lookout for that October 25th. It's gonna be a great night. Barbados Bash, a lot of stacked fighters on that card, and he predicted an early knockout. Maybe take him in the deep water, so to speak. See if he drowns a little bit, sinks, swims. We'll figure it out. But either way, we want to get you back on after the fight. We'll recap everything, but certainly appreciate a couple moments. Thanks for making time joining
Thank
us on
you. Thank
Tropical
you.
Pets Auto. All right,
Thank
we
you for
will
having
end.
me on your show.
We
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
it. And
And
yes,
before we go, we
yes.
also gonna have I actually got an old fighter to come out of retirement because he was like a role model to me. Sean Terry Cox, he was a 1996 Olympian. He was even supposed to fight Roy Jones, but he and his manager had it and it never came off.
Okay,
Yeah, so he's actually on the card. You
nice.
know, yeah, I actually get him to come out of retirement. He said nobody could get me to come out of retirement, but
There you go.
he did
Yeah,
it for me.
yeah,
So I
you might have a
appreciate
little
that.
you might have a little markability and promoter in you as well. If the boxing thing just doesn't work out for you.
Well, to be honest, the promoter he already telling me like, yo, business wise, I only been around you a few days in Barbados, and I think you're a good guy for this kind of job. He told me it, so I think about
Hey,
it.
it's all about playing the game. All right, everyone, don't forget channel 82 Bermuda. That's where you can catch us, Tropical Bets Ahora. And again, I'm Rich Quinones. Keithland, appreciate a couple moments. Best of luck, and we will do it again soon, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.